Hi everyone, it's Elaine Hamilton from the Reiki Center, and in this session, I'd like to talk about self-authorization. And this comes from two things that happen on the same day. And when that happens, I'm like, must be a video in here somewhere. And it was a conversation I had with somebody around feedback. This is common, okay? So feedback from a healer or a spiritual teacher or somebody that we really respect who tells us something that is a bit unnerving and perhaps not 100% resonant. And then in the same day, I had a coaching session with a Reiki teacher who had been told by a kind of like their business coach, I guess, or advisor who was pushing them to do something. And again, the issue that came up was a feeling that there wasn't resonance in what was being told, but they were pushing themselves into acting in a way that didn't feel congruent with where they were at that moment. So the self-authorizing principle is the idea that you know yourself better than anybody else on the planet. Doesn't take a lot of thinking to see this has to be true. You have been with you since birth, before birth, 9 months before birth. I don't know. I don't know what your philosophy is on when consciousness arrives into the human being. However, I'm pretty sure that you have been present in your own life a lot longer than any other person, right? No matter how well you think they know you or how well you think they know their topic of expertise. So often we seek advice or coaching or guidance or healing from somebody that we respect is an expert in their field. And great, they are an expert in that field. So therefore, we go to them for advice, whether it's you go to a Reiki class with a Reiki teacher to get instruction, to get attunements, and to get the content and the practice. Obviously, the Reiki teacher has more knowledge than you, right? And on that topic. So, however, they don't have more expertise or experience or knowledge on the topic of you. Okay. So they might be an expert in whatever, in business, whoever you're going to, in business, in psychology, in counseling, in the human mind, in whatever. However, there is this important identification that we all need to come to within ourselves, which is that we respect our own resonance and we trust our own process and what feels right and what doesn't feel right within ourselves. And we need to learn how to trust that more than what some so-called expert tells us. Now, in our society, we are very well trained to abdicate our responsibility. And this starts very early. It starts in childhood, where we abdicate our responsibility to parents. And that makes sense because, in a sense, parents are the expert on how to stay alive, right? They've been doing it longer than us, and they can teach us a lot of things. They teach us sticking our fingers in the electrical socket isn't going to end well. They teach us that sticking our hand in a fire, no matter how pretty, is going to hurt. Essentially, we also learn these things as well on our own, but it's useful to have some kind of parental guidance. And then that extends when we go to school. The teachers help us to understand knowledge, how to get through the school system. And then when we start work, we have bosses, co-workers, people with more experience teaching us how to do our jobs properly. So all through life, we're very used to being told what to do. And we're very used to giving power to those who are so-called experts in fields that they know more than us. And there's a rightness with that. Like we can't go into certain technical jobs and we can't go into certain new experiences and just blindly decide that we know exactly what's going on. For example, I would not be very happy if you said to me, oh, have a bash at brain surgery and try and open me up and have a go, right? But there's a certain discernment that we have to make that these people are experts in certain fields. But that does not make them experts in everything. And it certainly doesn't give them the right to proclaim something as truth. What they're doing when they give expert advice is giving you the summation of their own experience, their own lived kind of learning, and their intuitive or gut feeling. Now, oftentimes, and I'm not saying at all that when people push opinions on you, that they're doing it deliberately or with any kind of agenda to harm you at all. I do believe that most people give advice from a place of caring and from a place of open-heartedness or good intentions, right? But your job as an expert in you is to take that information and to see whether or not you feel a resonance in your own system. Is this advice that's coming to you feeling like it is advice that resonates with you? Now, I know that's also very confusing. I do think that one of the most important factors of personal growth is our ability to become more self-empowered. Because, as I said, from very, very young, we have been trained to abdicate and we have been trained to give other people power over us. And it happens everywhere in society. Like governments tell us what to do, doctors tell us what to do. It's like the rules, the law, the police, the entire state mechanism of control and authority is handed over to a higher order. And then often in spirituality, we then hand over power to a godlike figure or a guru, or it's everywhere. So it's not surprising that for most of us, we have not developed our own inner compass around what feels true for me and what doesn't feel true for me, what feels resonant and what doesn't. And so that's why I say in personal growth, the biggest challenge is really developing that facility for yourself so that you can start to self-authorize. So when somebody gives you advice, and it's a lot easier when you don't really respect the person to decide whether their advice is good or not, right? And if you are faced with somebody that you really respect, perhaps it is a teacher, a guide, a coach, somebody that has really helped you on your journey, somebody that's been a real good influence, and they give you advice or they give you information that feels like it's kind of like, oh, they know what they're doing. They know what they're saying. They've helped me so much in the past. They've been right in the past. So therefore, they must be right now, or I must do what they say. Now, every single piece of information that comes to you should be actually placed through a filter. Sometimes people are right in their opinion of what you should and shouldn't do, and sometimes they're not. It's just like you. Sometimes you're right and sometimes you're not, right? So the experience of this is to really get comfortable with being okay that you're going to ignore them, or being okay that you are going to override their opinion with your own opinion, and sitting comfortably with that. And so the process is more like when somebody says to you, oh, I feel this. So in the situation of the first person I spoke to, they were like, oh, I have an energy healer who seems to be very good at reading auras and reading energy fields. And this person told me that I have this wrong or that wrong in my energy field, and it was quite negative. So then the person I was speaking to felt low and a little bit helpless, a bit like, oh my God, that's terrible. And so her whole energy kind of took a dive, even though before that she'd been feeling fine. So this is the level of influence. It's almost like when someone has a great deal of influence over us, then their information can actually impact and affect the way we feel, even though before that information, we were fine. And this, I think, is it's a really strong red flag for me when I'm feeling fine and then somebody tells me something that then makes my whole system disrupted, then I tend to kind of treat that with a bit of caution. I'm like, okay, so I was feeling fine. Then they told me something. And you can see this sometimes reading something, like you read something on the internet and you're like, oh, and it affects you, or you watch the news and it impacts you. And you can see how it's very easy for information to come into your system. And then before you know it, you've assimilated it and believed it as your own. And it may or may not be true. So oftentimes it's a matter of just checking in with yourself and asking yourself, okay, if I was fine before, what is actually triggering this? And it might be a fear response. It might be a like a thought of, oh, well, they must be right, I must be wrong. And it's surprising how often we put ourselves in that situation where we doubt ourselves. So then there's the doubt that we were feeling good. We start gaslighting ourselves. Maybe I wasn't feeling that good after all because I'm not feeling good now. But essentially what's happened is information has come in, you've believed it, and then your body has responded. And this is the trickiness of the whole thing, because the body and the mind and the emotions are very intricately wrapped up together. So when you get some bad news, then you automatically, and you believe it, then you automatically start responding to that bad news, and you start to feel exactly the way that you would expect to feel if it was true. It's a very complex thing. But it's equally funny how, as soon as you discard that information and you decide for yourself, okay, well, that's their opinion, but that's not my experience. In my experience, I feel good. There is nothing wrong with my aura. When I'm checking in with how I'm feeling today, it's okay. And then just like that, you can discard the information, stop believing it, and then you feel good again. I mean, I'm not joking when I say it's this quick. So these are some of the things to watch out for. And the other thing to watch out for is when you notice a certain pressure or stress that starts to come into your system. This is a real barometer. Like, and I know I've said this 100 times, but notice how your body's feeling. If your body starts to feel anxious or stressed, or you start to feel pressure, or you start to feel uneasy, or you start to feel emotional, oftentimes, and the reasons for this is because you are thinking along certain lines that you need to do something, you should do something, there's something that you need to push through. These are also great red flags for you. There is no should in your life. We put a lot of shoulds on ourselves, and society puts a lot of shoulds on us as well. The definition of success, the definition of, like a meaningful life, the definition of your life purpose, of success in your life purpose, all the things you should be, even bucket lists. And oh my God, there's just so much pressure in our lives to have a fulfilling life, right? And a fulfilling life means a whole list of accolades, a whole list of achievements, a whole list of successful outcomes. It's very goal-oriented if you look at it. It's almost like, if all of this stuff, what does it give you at the end of it? And the promise, the false promise, is that, oh, then once you've achieved all this stuff, then you can relax and be happy, or then you can relax and be satisfied. I'll let you into a little secret. The idea of ongoing and constant or continuous feelings of happiness and like contentment And fulfillment is just, it's not a thing. Just not a thing. I mean, take a look in your own life. And yeah, you could gaslight yourself and go, well, I don't feel happy all the time because I haven't achieved all my goals. I promise you, when you achieve all your goals, you're still not going to feel a steady, daily, 100% capacity for happiness. And you know that. You just have to think about it for 30 seconds. You're like, oh yeah, you're going to have up days and you're going to have down days, whether you have achieved every single thing on your bucket list or not. It's going to be the same. Like you achieve all those things and you tick off all those boxes. You have a momentary high when you reach your goal. Like at the moment, I'm watching the Olympics, and honestly, it's amazing. These guys they do amazing things. And I'm sure when they achieve that gold or the silver or the bronze or break their personal best records or whatever it is they're going for, I'm sure that there is a great deal of satisfaction in that moment. And there is a great deal of joy in that moment, but it doesn't last because by next week, next month, next year, they'll be on to the next goal. And you know this because you've experienced this yourself. If you think back to anything where you thought, I'm going to achieve that goal, like maybe you graduated from high school or university, or you got that job, or you did this, or you did something in your life where you were trying to achieve something and then you hit the mark and then you felt so great and it was wonderful. And maybe it lasted a day or a month or a year or however long it lasted. And then you're on to the next thing. So this idea that we can or we need to achieve goals in order to be happy, or we need to achieve a certain level of success in order to be happy is total bullshit. It's not true. Achieve goals if you want to achieve goals. Don't if you don't. Never feel pressure that you have to stand up to somebody else's definition of success just because it seems to be what everybody thinks you should be doing. It's like, all right, so what? Like, let them do that if they want to do that. But that doesn't mean you have to do that because their own pressure of what they think of success is nothing to do with you. It's none of your business, right? Let them go and do whatever they think is successful in their terms, whatever's important, whatever are their shoulds and shouldn'ts. That's for them to figure out. Your purpose, your journey, whatever, is to come into your full authenticity. And that means that your definition of success might be mindfulness. It might be having lots of space in your day. It might be like just enjoying cooking, enjoying walking. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you have to push yourself. Where does this come from? So if you have people in your life who you feel that somehow you should look up to, and somehow they know things you don't know, and they're pushing you, and you feel the stress of that. So coming back to how is it feeling in the body? Ultimately, you can set your own guidelines for this, and you can set your own self-authorizing principles, your own definition of success, your own definition of what you want out of your life. And I think the more we travel on our spiritual journey, the more this becomes obvious that there is no proper or truthful path to a well-lived life. And you just look around, like people are living life in so many different ways. Just look around your friendship group, your society, what people are doing, all the way from just nomadic lifestyle, van life, all the way up to incredible success and riches and billionaires and yachts and all the stuff in between. So there is no proper way to live a life. There's only what resonates with you wanting to live your life. And if you can start to really let go of the pressure that anybody else tries to put on you through the goodness of their own heart. I mean, I'm not saying these people are are deliberately trying to push you into being something you don't want to be, because they're coming from a place of that's their definition of success. That's their focus. And so they're just projecting. Remember, everybody's just projecting their own shit all the time, 100% of the time. When people are talking to you, they're talking through their own filters, their own experience, their own belief systems. It has nothing to do with you, like nothing. Nobody can ever talk to you through your own experiences and your own opinions and your own beliefs. And so this idea that people understand you better than you understand yourself is ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. And when you keep following that mythology, then you're constantly giving away your power, giving away your power. And so therefore you end up going through the motions and never really being particularly satisfied or content or happy, because you're basically living the lives of other people's projections. So I do think this is a really interesting topic for me, because I also understand how difficult it is. Like I'm constantly checking in with myself, constantly. Like, am I doing this because I feel I ought to, or I feel like some weird external pressure, even if nobody's told me to do this? And then it's a matter of coming back to my own definition of success. Like, what is success to me? Like, what is it that I'm trying to achieve here? And being very clear that when I achieve any goal or when I go for a certain purpose, it's not going to bring me anything. You're just doing it for the fun of it. You're doing it because you can. You're doing it because it seems like a good idea at the time, but you're not doing it because you think you're then going to achieve some kind of everlasting and eternal happiness or state of security or safety, because that's just never going to happen. And so the navigation of our life is always to do with what feels right for us in that moment, and working on any pressure or any feelings of dis-ease, unsettlement that comes from navigating it within a society that has very, very fixed ideas and rules about this. And a society that also over history changes its mind over what's important and what's not important constantly. So it's not as if this truth is, what is important now to the definition of success is very different to 100 years ago and will be very different in 100 years. I mean, the whole definition of success is constantly evolving, constantly evolving. And so that's also something to bear in mind, right? Like our ancestors didn't have the same definition or the same kind of pressures that we have now. And our predecessors also, predecessors, what do you call the people that come forward? Anyway, those guys, our children's children will also be running completely different societal rules as well. So nothing is fixed and nothing is true and nothing is needed in order for you to be content and happy exactly in this present moment with what you've got. And then from there, you build forwards in ways that interest you and that feel fun. Life is supposed to be fun. So anyway, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Just felt good to talk about that. And so I hope maybe that's helped, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.